Snowflakes drifted through the night air like tiny shards of glass, melting the moment they kissed the ground. The city was asleep, wrapped in silence, except for the faint, muffled sobs coming from the corner of an empty street near the closed hospital gates. There, under the flickering yellow light of an old lamppost, sat a young woman in a thin nurse's uniform, trembling, her knees drawn close to her chest. In her arms, she held two tiny bundles, her twin babies, wrapped in worn-out blankets that barely shielded them from the freezing air. Her tears fell silently on their small faces as she whispered apologies, broken words carried away by the winter wind. A black luxury car slowed down nearby, its headlights cutting through the dark. Inside, a man in his early 30s watched the scene unfold through the glass, his expression shifting from confusion to concern, and then to something deeper. He was Ethan Walker, the CEO of Walker Enterprises, a man whose life was defined by discipline, success, and silence. To the world, he was untouchable, cold, efficient, and always in control. But inside, he carried a void only he knew, the absence of love, the ache of losing his wife 3 years ago, leaving him to raise his little daughter alone. If you believe that kindness, second chances, and unexpected miracles can change lives, pause for a second and like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Because tonight's story is about how a single act of compassion can rewrite two broken destinies. Ethan stepped out of the car, the cold wind biting through his coat as he walked toward the woman. The closer he got, the more the sight tore at his heart. Her face was pale, lips trembling, eyes red from crying. The babies in her arms were barely awake, their tiny chests rising and falling weakly. For a moment, he stood frozen, torn between his instincts as a businessman who rarely got involved in strangers' lives, and something else, something human, urging him to act. He finally knelt beside her and removed his scarf, gently wrapping it around her shoulders. She flinched at first, startled, then looked up with wide eyes that carried both fear and exhaustion. Ethan didn't ask her name or what had happened. He just said softly, "Let's get them warm." Hours later, inside his penthouse apartment, the sound of soft crying filled the air. Not from fear this time, but relief. The young woman, whose name he learned was Clara Hayes, sat near the fireplace with her twins wrapped in soft blankets. A mug of warm milk sat untouched beside her, her fingers shaking slightly as she watched the flames dance. She looked completely lost, like someone who had spent all her strength trying to stay afloat and had finally stopped fighting the current. Through quiet, halting words, Ethan learned her story. Clara had been a nurse at the hospital nearby, working endless shifts to care for her newborn twins after their father, her fiancé, abandoned her before their birth. She had managed for a while, but when her small apartment caught fire 2 weeks ago, everything she owned was gone. Her savings were spent on temporary shelters, and when the hospital cut her hours, she had nowhere left to go. Tonight, she had been sitting outside the hospital, hoping they'd let her stay inside for warmth, but no one did. Ethan sat in silence as she spoke, the weight of her words heavy in the air. Her story echoed something inside him, memories of his late wife, who had also been a nurse. He remembered the same gentle strength in her eyes, the same devotion to others, even when she herself was breaking inside. Clara's pain wasn't just her own, it mirrored the loneliness he'd buried beneath his success. Over the next few days, Ethan insisted she and the twins stay with him until she found her footing again. At first, Clara resisted, pride and fear of judgment holding her back, but his quiet kindness eventually broke through. She moved into the guest room, caring for her children while trying to rebuild her strength. Every morning, Ethan would find her humming softly as she fed the babies, her hair tied in a messy bun, exhaustion etched across her face. But there was peace too, the kind born from unconditional love. His daughter, Lily, immediately grew attached to her, often crawling into her lap or helping feed the twins. The sound of laughter began to fill the house again, something Ethan hadn't heard in years. Clara tried to repay his kindness by helping wherever she could, making breakfast, helping Lily with her homework, organizing the home with quiet grace. But despite her smiles, Ethan could see the sadness still lingering in her eyes. She would stare out of the window at night, lost in thought, holding one of her babies close. He often wondered what it must feel like, to lose everything yet still find the strength to love so deeply. One evening, a winter storm raged outside. The twins were asleep, and Clara sat near the fire, her expression pensive. Ethan joined her, both watching the snow pile up outside the glass windows. He told her about his late wife, how he had lost her during childbirth complications, and how, for years, he buried himself in work, shutting the world out. For the first time, she saw the man behind the title, the pain beneath his calm voice. Clara listened quietly, tears glistening in her eyes. "You saved me that night," she whispered. "But I think you saved yourself, too." Something changed after that. They began to share more moments, not as a CEO and a struggling nurse, but as two people healing together. Clara's laughter returned, and Ethan found himself smiling more. His daughter Lily started calling Clara Mommy Clara, without even realizing it. It melted something inside him, a warmth he thought he'd never feel again. But peace rarely lasts unchallenged. One afternoon, while Ethan was at work, his sister Miranda paid him an unexpected visit at the office. She had heard rumors, stories about her brother sheltering a woman with children, and she was furious. "Ethan, you have a reputation to protect. People are already talking. You barely know her. What if she's using you?" The words hit him harder than he expected, stirring doubts he didn't want to admit. When he returned home that night, Clara could tell something was wrong. His smile was strained, his words brief. She felt the distance between them grow again. That night, after he went to bed, she sat awake, tears rolling silently down her face. She had known this moment would come, when kindness turned to misunderstanding, when gratitude became a burden. She couldn't let her presence ruin the man who had saved her. The next morning, she packed her few belongings, kissed the twins softly, and left a note on the table. "Thank you for giving us warmth when the world turned cold. I will never forget your kindness." By the time Ethan found the note, the city was drenched in icy rain. Panic surged through him as he rushed to find her. He searched every shelter, every hospital, but she was nowhere. Finally, at dusk, he found her sitting at a bus station outside the city, holding the twins close to shield them from the cold. Her hair was soaked, her eyes swollen, but she still smiled when she saw him. He didn't speak. He simply took off his coat, wrapped it around her, and pulled her into his arms. "You don't walk away from family," he said quietly. "Not again." Clara broke down completely, the tears she had held back for so long finally pouring out. For the first time, she felt safe, truly safe. Ethan brought her back home, and from that day, he made sure she understood she wasn't a burden. She was the missing piece of the life he had forgotten how to live. Months passed. Clara found a new position at a private hospital, this time with Ethan's quiet support behind the scenes. She never asked for favors, and he never offered more than she needed, but they built something stronger than either expected, a partnership rooted in respect, gratitude, and love that grew slowly, quietly, like spring after a long winter. On Lily's birthday, Ethan watched as Clara helped the little girl blow out her candles, laughter filling the room. The twins, now crawling, clapped their tiny hands. It was chaos and joy all at once, and in that moment, Ethan realized he wasn't just a man who had given someone shelter, he had been given a new family in return. As the candles flickered out, he took Clara's hand. "You were right that night," he said softly. "Saving you saved me too." Tears welled up in her eyes as she smiled, whispering back, "Maybe we both just needed to be found." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. It helps more people believe in love, hope, and the power of second chances. And before we end, comment below. Kindness always finds its way back, because sometimes all it takes is one moment of compassion to change the course of two lives forever. Ethan looked around the room, at his daughter, at the twins, at Clara, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel the emptiness that had haunted him. He felt whole. The snow still fell outside, but inside that home, the fire burned bright, a reminder that even the coldest nights can give birth to the warmest mornings. And that night, as he whispered goodnight to the twins, he realized something beautiful. Sometimes, family isn't the one you're born with. It's the one you find when you need it the most.